All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So there was an article that released over on The Athletic from Matt Scheinman, basically detailing some of the fallout between Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Talked about the whole text message drama, the contact drama that was going on between Rodgers and Packers GM Brian Gutekunst. Kind of like literally went into details with with some of those things. Has a couple of quotes from Aaron himself where he actually made one reference to the New York Jets, his time now. But I wanted to kind of break this down, talk about some of the main talking points here. Of course, I'll leave it linked down below in the description box. So if you want to go check it out, I definitely recommend it. It's called Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, and the Long Succession. Just tell the truth. You wanted to move on. Let's jump in. So the article starts off right around the time of the 2020 NFL Draft, right before the Green Bay Packers went out and selected Jordan Love, quarterback from Utah State. Obviously a highly controversial pick. I remember at the time I was over, I was watching the draft over at my buddy Ryan's house, and we were just hanging out. And I remember the Packers came up on the clock, and Jordan Love was still on the board. And at the time, Love was rumored to, he was kind of a little bit of an enigma. People were mocking him really high. Some were saying, no, he's a second round pick. He was still on the board, and I was thinking in my head, no way, the Packers can't do this, right? Coming off an NFC championship, Rodgers isn't falling apart. He's not breaking down as a quarterback. It's not like they're going to need somebody to get in and have an accelerated learning curve to take over for Rodgers the next season. But in the back of my head, it was just like, there's a chance, right? There's a small chance. We know Green Bay doesn't select receivers in the first round, even though that was a pretty big need outside of Devontae Adams at the time. And what ends up happening, the Packers draft Love, and that it got to Aaron. It definitely got to Aaron. Apparently, he skipped his scheduled appearance on the Pat McAfee show and went on to say that he just chilled and waited for a call from Green Bay. In fact, the Packers actually knew that Rodgers would not be happy about the selection, so in order to protect the relationship between him and Matt LaFleur, they told him that the decision was strictly on the general manager. But then Aaron comes back with a quote, and he said, I had friends who said, hey, Matt looked super excited when they made the draft pick, and I said, I don't care, honestly. Like, they made the pick, they all signed off on it. And so, yeah, going back to draft night, I remember, so I was over at my buddy's house, and I remember sitting on the floor, and my girlfriend was there, his girlfriend was there, and they were all just kind of hanging out. They haven't really watched a draft before, and I just shot up, right? I was sitting on the floor, I shot up. I'm like, oh my God, Green Bay actually selected a quarterback. I was shocked. Again, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, there's a chance. Probably not, though. Probably not. Aaron is still playing at such a high level. I understand it. But maybe you're taking one a little bit too early here. We'll see how it plays out. And my buddy Ryan was just like, he was freaking out too. Like, damn, Green Bay just took a quarterback. This is crazy. So that obviously did not sit well with Aaron. So some time passes, and according to a source that is listed here in the article, David Dunn allegedly called Mark Murphy, the Packers president, with the request, fire Gutekunst or trade Rodgers. Murphy did neither. And then a couple months later, the news broke that Aaron Rodgers wanted out of Green Bay. And I remember that time, it was super weird. I just could not picture Aaron Rodgers playing for another team, kind of like Eli Manning playing for another team, Ben Roethlisberger playing for another team. You just look at these guys, these franchise quarterbacks that are, frankly, organizational legends. I can't picture him on different teams, even now, even still seeing Rodgers in the Jet uniform, looking at like Brady in the Bucks uniform, it just looks a little odd. Peyton Manning in the Broncos one, we could go on, but the point is, apparently Rodgers' agent literally gave an ultimatum to the Packers president here: fire him, fire the GM, or trade me away. And neither happened until obviously a couple years later. Rodgers goes on to say, I was under contract for one, so definitely wasn't going to hold out and let them find me. There were a lot of things that I was hoping were going to change, and they made some promises about some things they were going to try and do better, but I just felt like coming back, have a good season, move forward, and just try not to focus on those things that I felt really strongly about, but they may or may not actually ever get done. And the whole Rodgers and Green Bay situation is definitely there are some awesome things that I felt like the Packers did for Aaron. And then there's some things that it's just like, man, like some easy stuff that could be accomplished that just never got done. Right? It's such a weird paradox because it's like, on one hand, Green Bay has historically, at least in my lifetime, been a stable organization. They've always given Aaron great offensive lines. They've always surrounded him, in the trenches with good enough players. They always have put in an emphasis on making sure that the offensive line is there. Right? Aaron's not going to be running for his life. He is literally one of, if not the best player in franchise history. No, we're not putting him behind a makeshift O-line or having changes all the time, trying to cut corners. Not at all. I always felt like Green Bay had a solid running game as well throughout the years. It wasn't until like later on in Aaron's career where the holes at wide receiver just became so apparent, right? Of course, they've had some great guys. Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, now a New York Jet, Davante Adams, obviously, but I'm talking about the depth later on in his career, because it's like you look at the you look at the rosters. Yes, Allen Lazard turned into a really good player. Yes, Davante Adams became arguably the best wide receiver in football, but it's not like the Packers went out and made these splash types of moves. Even like last season with Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, both guys impressed. I like both guys a lot. But Davante Adams was a second-round pick. Christian Watson was a second-round pick. Romeo Doubs was undrafted. Allen Lazard was another undrafted player. So it's not like the Packers intentionally said, Aaron, you know what? You're an absolute beast. We got to go get you a stud wide receiver. We're going to go cash in. We're going to go trade the second-round pick. We're going to go hand out the big money deal. We're going to get you an absolute beast at wideout. It seemed like a lot of their wide receivers just developed within the organization. It's not a bad thing. I'm not taking a shot at Green Bay, not in the least, right? They've done a great job of that. But it's like, if you take a second and put yourself in Aaron's shoes, like you kind of feel a little left out, right? With all the wide receiver movement that we've seen, whether we're talking A.J. Brown going from Tennessee to Philly. I mean, there's so many different examples, right? DeAndre Hopkins, Houston to Arizona. We could talk about Brandon Cooks. We could talk about Tyreek Hill going from Kansas City to Miami. Stephon Diggs, Minnesota, over to Buffalo. The list goes on. I mean, there's a lot of wide receiver movement. The point is, Green Bay has never been on the receiving end of one of these sweet trades to go get a wide receiver. And from Aaron's perspective, it's like, hey, I've really given my all to this organization. And yeah, we have some great pieces. We feel like we're right on the cusp. And there's just hesitation from the organization to bite the bullet, to make the risky move, if you will, the aggressive move, whether it be a trade or in free agency. It's just not really there. And for, a 37, 38-year-old quarterback, you're looking at that like, man, like I don't have a lot of time left. It's one thing if I have 10 years, maybe there is a change upstairs. They have a change of mentality. Maybe we do draft a couple of stars in the first round or something like that. But there's like 2-3 years left, right? Again, Rodgers late in Green Bay. So I see his frustration. I definitely do. So Rodgers ends up holding out, and then 2021 rolls around, and he wins his second MVP. Packers number 1 seed in the NFC. They fell to the 49ers in the divisional round at home at Lambeau. And then that offseason in 2022, Rodgers re-upped, signing the 3-year, $150 million extension to keep him in Green Bay, which was also a bit weird. I remember when that whole thing came out, it was just like, okay, the Packers and Rodgers, they've made up. They're on great terms. We're going to see this thing out. Rodgers, it is what it is. He's not going to Denver. He's not going to, there were a couple teams linked with Rodgers, but Denver being the biggest, he's sticking with the Green Bay Packers. And then out of nowhere, the Packers apparently lowballed Davante Adams, who wanted to get paid, wanted to be the highest paid wide receiver, and they offered him a deal right around the $18 million a year mark, which is Christian Kirk. And Rodgers actually addressed this, where he said they offered him less money than Christian Kirk at $18 million a year. And Adams is going, are you serious right now? I'm the best receiver in the league, and you're gonna offer me less than Christian Kirk? All due respect, he's not on Davante's level. Quick side note, I actually do really like Christian Kirk a lot, but I agree, he's not top 5 here. I'm sure that the team will say it's just the business of negotiation. It's like, yeah, but you're also sending a message to that guy. And a lot of times it can stick with guys and make them a little sour on things. That goes back to the first offer that they made. I don't think the Packers had the foresight. Obviously, they didn't have the foresight. So Rodgers ended up not going to the voluntary OTAs with the Packers once again. And after his first practice of training camp, Rodgers apparently aired his grievances, saying that he wanted to see changes within the organization's communication and culture. According to Rodgers, the communication between him and Gutekunst improved somewhat. And then in Aaron's words, it still wasn't anywhere near what I've already enjoyed here with the Jets in just a few short weeks. That's awesome, right? Quick side note, that is awesome. As a Jet fan hearing that, it's totally refreshing to hear that the organization, the higher-ups here, the Salas, the Hackett's of the world, the Joe Douglases of the world, they're making it they're making an effort. They're making it a point to say, Aaron, you know what? Dude, you're a legend, man. You're a beast. And we love you and we appreciate you. We want to surround you with guys that you want to be around. Granted, the Alan Lazards, the Randall Cobbs, they're all here now. We got a squad. Tim Boyle behind them. Who else? Billy Turner on the O-line. New York Packers, like 100%. But I do appreciate that from the Jets' standpoint here, right? Like, again, as a fan, hearing an absolute legend talk, say that line, what was it? It still wasn't anywhere near I've enjoyed here with the Jets in just a few short weeks, and he's talking about his relationship between him and Gutekunst, the Packers GM, for years. Totally awesome. So to fast forward a little bit, there was obviously, a lot of drama this offseason with Gutekunst and Aaron Rodgers kind of taking like petty shots at each other in the media, not directly, where Rodgers said that he appreciates like the one-on-one direct conversation, right? Be black and white. Tell me what you feel. Do you want me? Do you not want me? Like what's the plan moving forward? Include me in your plans. And then we've heard Gutekunst's side where he basically said that, he tried. He tried to contact him, he never got back, tried multiple times, never got back. And then you're kind of sitting there, again, as a fan, outsider looking in, who's right? Did Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, just not even contact Aaron Rodgers once throughout the thing? No, probably not. He probably did contact him. Did Rodgers, completely just avoid him? Never text back, never call back, never FaceTime back or anything like that? No, he probably did try to communicate back. I think there are some grains of truth with both stories. And, at the end of the day, I guess we'll never really know. And with this article, we only really have Aaron's take. I'm sure if somebody sits down with Gutekunst, we'll get a different story. But Aaron goes on to say that life happens. When I hit him back, he was already out of town, but it wasn't like I hit him back 5 days later. He hit me up like in the morning of one day. I hit him up either that night, the next morning, or the next day, and then he was gone. It wasn't like there was a date where we were for sure meeting at this time, at this place. It was like, hey, I'm coming out west. I'm driving, whatever. You want to get together? I said, yeah, I got a busy schedule. I'm working out. I got things going on. I got appearances, but I would like to make that work. I have 0 or 1 bar at the house, so you call me. Sometimes it goes through. Most of the time it drops and doesn't go through. Everybody who knows me when I'm out west, they know that's how you get a hold of me. So you can say whatever you want about that, but that's the effing truth. Before I went into the darkness, I hit him up and said, hey, there's some stuff swirling around here. We should get together, you, me, and Matt. And then after the darkness retreat, Rodgers contacted his agent, and his agent basically said that the Packers have been shopping him around. And then at that point, Rodgers told Dunn, his agent, to tell Gutekunst that he wanted to be traded to the Jets, and he didn't have much to say to the general manager. So I think for me, after listening to Rodgers, right, reading this article, listening to Gutekunst in his press conferences and interviews, I think if I had to take a guess on what actually happened, again, I think there's grains of truth to both. I think my understanding of the situation, Rodgers does not like Gutekunst. He's, he wants things done a certain way, and he kind of feels like he has earned it at this point. And Gutekunst is sick and tired of Aaron, but neither party here wanted to say, hey, you're doing this wrong. I'm out of here. Like they almost like nobody really wanted to be the bad guy in this situation. So they're both going to dodge, not really address it fully. And then it's going to boil over at some point in time who's eventually going to break. And it kind of just seemed like Green Bay and Rodgers just both hit that point at the same exact time. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter because Rodgers is here. Rodgers is with the Jets. He is happy to be here. Nobody's forcing him to be here. He's attending voluntary OTAs. Obviously, it's not something that he's done as of recent times, right? And everything's good. Everything with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, as we stand right now, is perfectly fine. He's being a leader within the organization. He's getting along with everybody. It seems like everybody's on the same page when when problems arise, because let's face it, it's the NFL. Problems will arise, big or small. When those things come up, of course, we're going to have to see how everybody kind of responds to the adversity. But I do have faith that because the Jets and Rodgers are in such a good alignment, that they're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel and figure things out. It's not going to be, just two sides, across the fence throwing stones at each other, like taking petty, unnecessary shots at one another. And again, to me, that's the bottom line. Rodgers is happy. And I can't wait for the start of the season. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Jets.